Hello everyone, welcome to BYD Classes, and this will be the last session of economic development, and this is a fifth lecture of Mains 365. So we have discussed agriculture and allied activities, and we will start from industry today. So let's start. So first is industrial policy. So facts, what are the facts about industrial policy? 17% contribution of manufacturing sector to GDP, almost stagnant since 1991. So keep this in remember. Okay, 17% contribution of manufacturing sector of GDP has been decreased. An improvement on several internationally reputed indices such as Global Competitiveness Index, Logistic Performance Index, and the Global Innovation Index has been seen recently. And 63rd position in the ease of doing business since 2014 at 142nd, and 9 Indian companies features in Fortune 500 list of 2022. So keep this in mind. What are key objectives of industrial sector? Perform India into a major partner and player in the global arena. Maintain a sustained growth in productivity and enhance gainful employment. Promote in a planned manner the adoption of Industry 4.0. Attract $100 billion inward FDI annually this year and support last year and support outward FDI to assert Indian presence in the world market. Create Indian premium international brands and showcase them as an attractive investment destination. So these are the key objectives of industrial sector. What are the constraints about industrial sector? Distortions in industrial pattern owing to selective inflow of investment. Cyclical slowdown in fresh investment since 2011-12 with issues of credit constraints, high unit labor cost, etc. Challenges to technology development and adoption, including data security, reliability of data, and stability, etc. Lack of quality industrial infrastructure and connectivity, leading to high logistics cost and reduced export competitiveness of Indian goods. Challenges of regulatory uncertainty, restrictive labor laws, intellectual property right issues, and delays, power shortages, absence of firm level data supply chain management disruption, and rising input costs, etc. So keep this in mind. What are the government initiatives or policies regarding industrial sector? So progressive liberalization of industrial policy since 1991 for a bigger role of private initiatives, infrastructure development through special economic zone, technology parks, national investment and manufacturing zones, national industrial corridor program, etc. PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, production linked incentive for various sectors to boost manufacturing and export, and national infrastructure pipeline create for good infrastructure in the country. 29 labor laws amalgamated into 4 labor codes like wages, industrial relations, wages of labors, etc., and other laws, policies, and reforms make in India competitive. Competition Act 2002 under Competition Commission of India, MSME Act 2006, and National Manufacturing Policy 2011, GST reforms in 2016, IBC 2017, and Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. Okay, and what are the way forward to reform in industrial sectors? So, revitalizing the manufacturing economy through demand generation, augmenting industrial infrastructure and promotion of MSMEs, continued liberalization to encourage FDI and private investment in manufacturing, setting up mega parks and manufacturing clusters in labor intensive sectors, initiative to push the industry to adopt Industrial Revolution 4.0, introduce a single window regulatory system in all states, and green industrial policy as part of the new industrial policy, tax reforms through multilateral and bilateral agreements, increase research and development expenditure and robust intellectual property right regime for holistic and sustainable development of intellectual properties reforms. So keep this in mind. And next is making India a manufacturing hub. What are the context? Recently, Prime Minister shared India's aim to become a manufacturing hub while participating in the SCO Summit 2022. Manufacturing sector in India. India is among the top 10 manufacturing nations in the world, with second largest mobile phone manufacturing capacity and the third largest startup environment. The manufacturing sector employed 6.24 crore people in 2019-20 as per the economic survey report, and received $21.3 billion of FDI in 2021-22. Also, its performance on the international benchmarks has improved significantly to attract manufacturers' interest. So keep this in mind. Second most sought after the manufacturing destination of the world in Global Manufacturing Risk Index from Kussman and Wakefields. What are the government initiatives regarding reforms of the industrial sectors? Manufacturing hub. So first is National Policy for Skill Development and Entrepreneurship, Defense Indigenization, Make in India program, Ease of Doing Business reforms. As World Bank has stopped this Ease of Doing Business index, and indirect tax reforms in goods and services, PLI scheme, labor laws reforms, Startup India, national logistic policy, and direct tax reforms like corporate tax reduction. So these are the government initiatives. Keep this in mind. Next is factors supporting India's rise of manufacturing hub. Internal situation, industry confidence. India's manufacturing purchasing manager index PMI has stepped above 50 for the 23rd consecutive month since June 2021. So increasing level of the purchasing manager index. It shows the good shape of India's manufacturing despite global headwinds and rising recession fears elsewhere. Large workforce. India will add 22% of the new global workforce in the next 3 decades, that is between 2020 and 2050. UN Population Fund 2019. High economic growth. Indian economy is the fastest growing major economy and is expected to become the world's second biggest economy by 2047. 100 years of independence of India. Large domestic market. The rising incomes and decreasing rural-urban divide support domestic demand rise. External circumstances. Supply chain disruptions due to the pandemic and other reasons. This has led to supply chain resilience initiative. For example, supply chain resilience initiative between India, Japan and Australia. US-China trade war, or change in relationship from cooperating rivals to competing rivals adds to supply chain disruptions, forcing companies to diversify their manufacturing sector, also known as the China plus one approach. For example, Apple has moved a significant share of its production to India. The situation in China. The aging population and rising labor cost of China have also forced companies to look for more sustainable alternatives. What are the constraints of manufacturing hub? Internal bottlenecks. Slow and incompatible or incomplete economic reforms, for example, labor reforms due to differences between union and state policies, legal issues, restrictive labor laws, lengthy compliance, poor intellectual property rights protection, lengthy litigation of disputes, etc. Low competitiveness. India's exports suffer in cost and quality due to high logistics cost. High fluctuations in raw materials due to high inflation, dominance of informal or MSME sectors, obsolete technology, no assured power supply, etc. And poor capital access. Access to formal capital is limited due to the large number of informal enterprises with poor financial record, lack of business plans, etc. Skilled manpower. 4.69% of workers are formally skilled as compared to 24% in China, 74% in Germany and 96% in South Korea. So these are the facts. Keep this in mind. Lack of entrepreneurial economy due to little supporting ecosystem for high-end tech manufacturing, etc. And external risk. Cyclical slowdowns in global markets leading to decline in fresh investments and demand constraints. Slow progress on trade agreements with European Union, UK, others, giving benefits to those with such agreements, for example, European Union, Vietnam free trade agreements. The next is increasing spillover risk from geopolitical tensions such as ongoing Russia-Ukraine war and tensions between USA and China. Uncertain currency markets due to strengthening of dollar against rupee and most other currencies. Increasing challenges to globalization and World Trade Organization's multilateralism due to shift of focus towards bilateral trade and investment trading among nations. So keep this in mind. What are the Make in India program? Under the progression of Make in India program, that is FDI inflows in India doubled to $83.6 billion, highest ever in financial year 2021-22 from more than $45 billion in 2014-15. Import of toys in financial year 2021 have reduced by 70%. PLI scheme across 14 key manufacturing sector was launched to strengthen domestic manufacturing, boosting export potential, etc. Incentive scheme was launched to build a semiconductor display design ecosystem in India. 1D 1P, one district one product initiative to help districts by identifying, promoting and branding a product. Public procurement preference to Make in India Order 2017 promote manufacturing and production of goods and services in local industry to enhance income and employment. What are the way forward to boost manufacturing hub in India? Policy harmonization between central and state government for effective implementation of government initiatives or government policies. Improved coordination between government and private sector to create a globally competitive manufacturing sector. Capacity building through promotion of innovation, entrepreneurship and skilling initiatives. Ensure energy self-efficiency and adopt an integrated approach to the supply chain to reduce logistics cost with higher speed, flexibility and resilience. For example, National Industrial Corridor Program for developing the complete ecosystem. Increase India's exports by reducing trade barriers. For example, through trade agreements and revitalization of WTO multilateralism to provide global market access to manufacturers. So keep this in mind. And next is PLI scheme, that is production linked incentive scheme. So what is PLI? And why PLI? Stagnant manufacturing contribution to GDP 15 to 17% since 1991. Large number of MSMEs with nearly 90% workforce in informal jobs. Global push for alternatives to China. China plus one strategy. Initiatives like National Manufacturing Policy, Make in India, etc. have had limited success. What are the potential benefits of PLI scheme? Increase registration of new manufacturing companies. Add over $500 billion worth of manufacturing in sunrise and strategic sectors in next 5 years. More than 4% to GDP per annum in terms of incremental revenue if fully realized. Greater strategic autonomy and strengthening existing comparative advantages. GSA, for example in telecom, and comparative advantages, for example in pharma sector. By localizing the most critical aspects of the value chain, achieve $100 billion plus inward FDI annually, and building India's goodwill and assert Indian presence in the world market, such as last year India received $100 billion FDI for the first time. And achievements of PLI scheme, in which areas significant increase in 76% in FDI in manufacturing sector in financial year 2021-22. More than $100 billion received FDI in India. Exports boosted by rupee 2.56 lakh crore. Employment generation of around 3,25,000 people. Actual investment of rupees more than 62,000 has been realized till March 2023. Import substitution of 60% received in the telecom sector. So keep this in mind. What are the challenges regarding PLI scheme. Lack of manufacturing culture due to structural issues and limited skilled workforce. Muted domestic manufacturing since domestication due to lopsided initial years of GST and pandemic, as well as demonetization. Policy and economic constraints due to issues of restrictive labor laws, clearance delays, and necessary funds to build world-class infrastructure for efficient and competitive manufacturing. Availability of raw material with rising commodity prices and supply chain disruptions. Other challenges like tough competition from Vietnam and China, implementation issues, and availability of technology. Delayed in PLI payments due to fund shortage and other reasons. Next is the way forward. Augment industrial infrastructure and connectivity by increasing expenditure on infrastructure creation for improved competitiveness. Enhance overall business environment to encourage investments through continued ease of doing business reforms such as single window regulatory system in all states. Revitalizing manufacturing economy through revival of domestic demand and optimizing supply chain to reduce logistics cost with greater resilience. And a regular scheme review to keep track of progress and address concerns over raw materials, funds, skilled workforce, payments, etc. Increase investments in innovation, research, and skill development to build necessary talent for PLI success. So these are some way forward to boost the PLI scheme sectors. And next is textile sector. What are the context regarding textile sector in India? 2.3% contributions to the Indian GDP, 12% to the export earnings of India, and held 5% of global trade in textiles and apparel. India is one of the largest producers of cotton and jute in the world, the second largest producer of silk in the world, the fifth largest producer of technical textiles. 95% of the world's hand woven fabric comes from India. It provides direct employment to over 45 million people, more than 21% of the total employment. What are the steps by the government for growth of textile industries? Manufacturing development, setting up of mega integrated textile region such as mega food park and apparel parks. PM Mitra Park means 7 PM Mitra parks to create an integrated textiles value chain. Production linked incentive scheme for the textile sector. Technology upgradation, amended technology fund upgradation schemes to upgrade technology or machineries of textile industry. Sector specific missions, National Handloom Development Program and National Technical Textile Mission. Capacity building and social security. Samarth scheme, that is a scheme for capacity building in textile sector. A scheme for incubation in apparel manufacturing means SIAM, SIAM, and a scheme for textile industry workers accommodation, STIWA, that is STIWA. So these are some of the government initiatives to growth of textile sectors. Next is what are the challenges? High fragmentation and unorganized sector. Increment small and medium enterprises in the textile sector. Increase in input cost. Unpredictable market conditions, weather policies, etc. have resulted in a shortage in the supply of raw materials and an increase in their material costs. Infrastructure bottlenecks, poor conditions of roads, highways, etc. create supply chain constraints and increase lead time, inventory holding cost, and inventory carrying costs. Highly competitive export markets. In the global market, tariff and non-tariff barriers, coupled with a lack of free or preferential trade agreements, are a major challenge to the Indian textile industry. What are the way forward? Utilizing upcoming opportunities in non-woven technical textiles based on changing consumer trends, including increasing emphasis on fitness and hygiene, rising brand consciousness, fast changing fashion trends, and so on. Infrastructure development, such as setting up mega apparel parks close to ports with plug and play facilities and common infrastructure for effluent treatment, etc., to scale up operations. Correction of inverted duty as proposed by the 55th GST Council meeting recently held. Fast tracking free trade agreement negotiation with countries like European Union to enhance the export competitiveness of Indian apparel. Focus on technology upgradation by utilizing new upcoming development in artificial intelligence and automation, incentivizing production of sustainable fabrics and apparel by promoting upscaling and reuse of existing fabrics and adoption of natural dyes. So these are the way forward regarding the textile industry. Next is technical textile. Wine News Ministry of Textiles issued two guidelines under the flagship program of the National Technical Textile Mission. Under the guidelines of the Ministry of Textile Industry, Education, Training and Skilling component of National Technical Textile Mission, the goal is to enhance the level of education and exposure to prospective Indian engineers, professionals in technical textiles. The primary aim is to ensure an adequate volume of talent is developed in this sunrise sector. For this purpose, the following two guidelines have been issued. General guidelines for enabling of academic industries in technical textiles for private and public initiatives. It will enable the new technical textile degree program, UG and PG, and updating of existing conventional degree programs with new papers on technical textiles. General guidelines for grant for internship support in technical textiles. What are the significance of technical textiles? Cost effective and user friendly. That is tough, lightweight alternative to metals and allows for numerous customization. Environmentally sustainable, reduces textile waste and limiting environmental impact. Production is flexible, continuous and versatile, and has application in a wide range of industrial, health and consumer products. Lighter weight while being durable. And what other benefits? Logistical convenience, high levels of uniformity, consistency in high temperature applications, renders the product multifunctional, etc. What are the challenges? Lack of awareness due to lack of marketing and basic knowledge about the technical textile sector. Development of skilled workforce, which is currently absent in the domestic industry. Lack of research and development, because lack of product diversification. Imports of technical textiles. India imports significant amount of technical textiles, mainly cheap products from China and USA and Europe. And structural issues. such as importing of raw materials for technical textile products is costlier in India as compared to importing finished goods due to the inverted duty structures. And what are the national technical textile mission launched by the government of India? What is the aim of this mission? India as a global leader in technical textiles and increase the use of technical textiles in the domestic markets. What is the target of technical textile? Market size of technical textile to 40 to 50 billion US dollar by 2024 with average growth rate of 15 to 20% per annum. So keep this in mind. Four components of technical textiles. National Technical Textile Mission: research, innovation and development, promotion and market development, export promotion and education training, skill development. And technical textiles and India. India fifth largest market for technical textiles in the world. India's current share is around $20 billion, around 8% of world market size of $250 billion, and 8% is annual average growth rate of this sector in India. 5 to 10% is penetration level of technical textiles in India against 30 to 70% in advanced countries. What are the government initiatives to boost technical textiles? Harmonized system of nomenclature course for technical textiles, 100% FDI under automatic route, and scheme for integrated textile parks to boost entrepreneurship. Amended technology upgradation fund scheme and Technotext India event with FICCI and other stakeholders. So keep this in mind, the government initiatives. And what are the way forward to boost technical textile in the country? Awareness creation is necessary. Skilled workforce have to enhance. Skilled workforces have to enhance in the technical textile because of lack of workforce or lack of skilled workforce. To creating a technical textile effectively opportunity for domestic manufacturing, Indian industry need to develop manufacturing capabilities for raw material of technical textiles, while the technical textiles manufacturers need to upgrade their machinery and continuously expand the HSN code list of technical textiles to keep pace with the development and emergence of ever newer products in the industry. Continuously identified and focus on technical textile products and segments to align the support with the priorities of Atmanirbhar Bharat and expansion of India's exports. So keep this in mind. And next section is services. And first, regarding software as a service, means SaaS. This is a section of science and technology, but it is a beneficial. It is used in economic sections as well. So what is the context? The next global software as a service recently released by the Confederation of Indian Industry highlighted the Indian software as a service industry's unique value and enormous impact being created by Indian software as a service. And what is the software as a service? SaaS is a software distribution model in which a cloud provider hosts applications and makes them available to end users over the internet. So this is the definition of software as a service. Keep this in mind. For example, It includes services provided by Google Workspace, Adobe Creative Cloud, etc. So what are the features of software as a service? Rented from a software vendor who also provides technical support, provided on a subscription basis, accessed on multiple devices. And one of three main categories of cloud computing. Yes, software as a service is main category of cloud computing, along with infrastructure as a service means where company leases a whole digital infrastructure, servers, network, resources, etc. for organizing business activities, creating applications, data storing. Platform as a service next is cloud, where cloud environment, hardware, software development tools and infrastructure is provided for creating apps and their further support. So these are the some other components of services in computing system. Software as a service sector in India. What is the context regarding in India? India is the third largest software as a service ecosystem globally after the USA and China. India is on the path to surpass China to become the second largest software as a service nation in the world by 2026. India presently has 21 software unicorns as compared to 1 in 2018. The number of software companies in India has more than doubled in 2021 as compared to 2019. What are the benefits of software vis-a-vis traditional software? So time effective, data safety, increment of speed, cost effective is affordable, on demand scalability and accessibility. So these are the benefits. Keep this in mind. And next is the reasons behind the growth of software as a service industry in India. Large consumer base is in India. That is the digitization of financial services and pandemic induced remote or hybrid work model, large scale digitization of enterprises and small and medium businesses, etc. Global validation of Indian software unicorns and emergence of skilled and mature software companies, abundant liquidity with growing interest from international venture capitals in Indian software companies, vast pool of digitally skilled workforce, paradigm shift to an on-demand subscription-based model instead of legacy on-premises products, supportive startup policies have been rise of ambitious and dynamic Indian entrepreneurship in the software as a service sector. What are the startup policies in India about software as a service? Regulatory, tax exemption and simplified compliance under software startup India scheme, and financial startup India seed fund with an outlay of Indian rupee 945 crore and credit guarantee scheme. What is the technology? Fast tracking of startup patent applications and provision of 80% rebate. National Small Industries Corporation Infrastructure Scheme to provide ready to move in office space, computer hardware and software facilities, internet and business center facilities. Another Samriddh is that is startup accelerator of Ministry of Information Technology for production in product innovation development and growth. A scheme to accelerate startups through customer connects, investor connects and facilitation of international expansion. So these are the startup policies in India. What are the challenges regarding software as a service sector in India? wide talent and knowledge gap with necessary workforce specific technical and managerial skills, difficulties in complying to norms related to data protection and privacy. For example, European Union's general data protection rights, lack of awareness and hesitancy in adoption among Indian businesses, especially in MSME sector with regards to using software as a service for operations, challenges faced by Indian startup enterprises in expansion. Most early stage software companies out of India struggle with funding competition from big players and go to market GTM strategies with when it comes to scaling globally. Poor internet connectivity in India being limited to prominent cities. So these are some challenges regarding software as a service sector for India. What are the way forwards? Focusing on building sustainable talent pipelines and conducting regular knowledge transfer or skill sharing workforces or workshops for creating a cadre of trained workforce, raising awareness and hand-holding Indian businesses to enhance adoption of software facilities, assisting startups in initial stages by creating mentorship linkages in the software as a service sector with the help of initiatives like startup, facilitating connectivity to faster internet by launching 5G networks. Next is the e-commerce. What is the status of e-commerce sector in India? Eighth largest globally, a sunrise sector with 10 to 15% share in India's retail market. More than $55 billion in 2021 and expected to reach 350 billion by 2030. 13th largest online shopper, base of 140 million in 2020. 10 million internet users are added monthly, majorly from tier 2 cities due to increasing internet and smartphone penetration. What are the key objectives? Ending digital monopolies and have a more inclusive e-commerce industry, bring transparency in pricing for easy price comparisons, access to Indian and global markets for small enterprises, help in promotion of digital payments growth in logistics sector or supporting new innovations across digital space like payments, service delivery, etc. Better deals and offer for customers, genuine reviews, etc. So these are the some key objectives. What are the policies of the government? Consumer Protection Rules 2022 for e-commerce to protect consumer interest and encourage free and fair competition. Open Network for Digital Commerce ONDC to control digital monopolies by setting protocols for cataloging, vendor discovery and price discovery. Government e-marketplace portal for 45 lakh registered small businesses, prioritizing technology under Digital India through initiatives like Umang Startup, Beam, BharatNet, etc. So these are the some internet portal. Equalization Levy Rules 2016 and its amendment in 2020. 100% FDI allowed in business to business e-commerce and in e-commerce marketplace model. So these are the some government initiatives. What are the challenges or constraints regarding the sector? Infrastructural problems such as availability of internet power devices, etc. Absence of data protection law with outdated framework of cyber laws, privacy and security concerns, payment and tax related issues, digital illiteracy, evolving regulatory framework of e-commerce industry with issues of fake reviews, predatory pricing, misuse of data, digital monopolies. What are the way forwards? Bring a data protection law on lines of European Union, GDPR with the proper awareness and enforcement mechanism. Model national retail policy for uniform and favorable environment. Clear definitions of what constitute unfair trade practices, including flash sale, mis-selling, and corrective mechanism to discourage deceptive tactics, including manipulation of algorithms, fake product reviews, etc. An appropriate grievance redressal mechanism for consumers, development of a framework to check fake reviews on e-commerce platforms. Next is e-commerce promotion and regulation. What is the context? Recently, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Commerce submitted its report on promotion and regulation of e-commerce in India. What are the laws governing e-commerce in India? Consumer Protection E-commerce Rules 2020. The rules are issued under the Consumer Protection Act 2019, prohibits e-commerce entities from adopting any unfair trade practices, manipulating the price, etc. Rules have extraterritorial applications, mandates e-commerce entities to establish an adequate grievance redressal mechanism, a nodal person of contact who is resident in India to ensure compliance. And next is foreign direct FDI policy for foreign direct investment. FDI backed e-commerce entities can engage only business to business e-commerce and not in business to consumer e-commerce. So keep this in mind. 100% FDI under automatic route for a marketplace based model for e-commerce. FDI is not permitted in inventory based model. A marketplace is not allowed to exercise ownership or control over the inventory purported to be sold. Other legal mandates: Information Technology Act 2000, IT Act under it, Information Technology Rules 2021 amended 2023 require intermediaries to publish their rules and regulations, privacy policy and user agreement. And Competition Act 2002 provides for preventing practices that have an adverse effect on competition or related to abuse of dominant position. And Legal Metrology Act 2009. Any e-commerce entity must comply with the and meet the standards relating to labeling and packaging. So keep this in mind. Okay. Just a minute. What are the key initiatives to promote e-commerce in India? Government e-marketplace platform, website for public procurement, as Umang Startup India portal, Bharat Internet for Money, that is Bhim UPI, etc. to boost digitalization. Open Network for Digital Commerce, ONDC, to set protocols for cataloging, vendor discovery and price discovery. So keep this in mind. And next is rolling out fiber network for 5G will help boost e-commerce in India. And reports highlight the key sectors. Will bring out a new Digital Markets Act to govern business practices, including data collection and user by digital economy compliant companies, or to introduce certain guidelines in Competition Act to address the concerns. Okay, so this is not useful for answer writing. And keep this in mind. Intel defining big tech companies acting as gatekeepers, that is business platforms that act as a gateway for small firms to reach out to end consumer. This will help regulate digital markets. If you have time, so read this. Okay. Next is the other issues and recommendations by the report. Cyber attacks, concerns regarding the safety of online shopping, and what are the recommendations? National cyber security policy or legislation that lays down the framework for addressing cyber crime. Next is FDI policy, 100% automatic route in e-commerce. FDI policy is limited in addressing anti-competitive practices. Obligations under FDI policy are formulated and notified by Department of Promotion for Industry and Internal Trade but enforced by Enforcement Directorate, leading to confusion and dissatisfaction amongst several trade organizations. An stable FDI policy regime be ensured in the commerce sector. Enforcement mechanisms under FDI policy must be strengthened and proactive action should be taken against e-commerce giants that are found to defy FDI rules. And lack of data. Critical data regarding e-commerce has not been collated and maintained. E-commerce companies are not registered with DPIIT, so these are concerns. And what are the recommendations? DPIIT should direct its source towards maintaining appropriate data. It should be mandatory for all e-commerce companies to be registered with DPIIT. And abuse of dominant position gaps in regulation, delay in undertaking timely amendments to the regulatory framework. Competition Commission of India should take forward the recommendations of Competition Law Review Committee. And lack of coordination between different ministries or departments. And recommendation is Digital Market Division with Competition Commission of India can be created as an expert division. Next is intellectual property right infringement. What are the concerns? Unhindered presence of counterfeit products negatively impacts the revenue of genuine manufacturers. The recommendation is due diligence measures must be imposed on sellers and platforms to check infringement of intellectual property rights. So keep this in mind. And next is Open Network for Digital Commerce, ONDC. What is the context? ONDC network recently started beta testing with consumers in Bengaluru. And what is ONDC? It is an initiative of Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade DPIIT Ministry under Ministry of Commerce. Aims open networks for all aspects of exchange of goods and services over digital or electronic networks. So these are the aims for the ONDC. What is ONDC? Market and community led initiative. An open network eliminates the need for a central intermediary, an enabler for massive digital commerce expansion, and enabler for broad-based innovation. What is the ONDC? Not. That is the government regulatory body. This is not the ONDC. An application or a platform, central intermediary, a medium to help digital business. So these are not ONDC. That is Open Network for Digital Commerce. So keep this in mind. Next is this is the process for different from traditional e-commerce model. So pause the video and read this. Okay. And what are the significance of ONDC in India. Ending monopolistic tendencies, ONDC will lower entry barriers for local businesses and create a level playing field for the e-commerce landscape. Enhancement of value for consumers. Consumers can potentially discover any seller product or service by using any compatible application or platform. Next is moving away from operator driven platform centric model, consolidating most of the trade of digital commerce in one platform creates centralization risk. It can also lead to the exclusion and discretionary behavior, limiting the choice and freedom of the buyers and sellers. ONDC resolves these issues by creating a facilitator driven interoperable decentralized network for e-commerce. Next is formalizing local businesses. Around 1.2 crore hyperlocal merchants kirana account for 80% of the retail sector in India, and more than 90% of them being unorganized or self-organized. So keep this in mind. Growth and development. ONDC will enable economic development and livelihood creation opportunities sectors. The digital commerce value chain, that is logistics, packaging, last mile delivery, etc. Encouraging widespread participation of small and medium enterprises, ONDC can help lower entry barriers for micro, small and medium enterprises that have the potential to flourish with innovative sales and marketing efforts. So these are the some significance and major objectives of ONDC: democratization and decentralization of e-commerce, inclusivity and access for sellers, especially small and medium enterprises as well as local businesses, increased choices and independence for consumers. So keep this in mind. What are the potential challenges for implementation of ONDC in India? Grievance redressal. Decentralized system can lead to lack of clarity over the shoulders. The responsibility for customer service and redressal in case of grievances. Difficulties in ensuring compatibility and interoperability of the existing platforms or applications of the buyers and sellers. Limited technical capabilities of local businesses and MSMEs to be onboarded on the digital network. Privacy and security concerns. Such open network may lead to collection of personal data which may have privacy issues, and its open nature may expose to its hackers. Competition from big players. Local business will find it extremely challenging to compete with the discounts, sales and other lucrative offers being offered by prominent e-commerce players. Okay, so you can remember this. What are the initiatives or way forward for ONDC? Boosting. Provide technical support to small and local businesses to use and design a technical tool compatible with ONDC protocol for their digital onboarding. Minimal personal data collection. Data exchange protocol should be designed to minimize friction. Also, it must be based on clear rules that protect the consumer interest. That is, the platform should be built on privacy by design principles and leverage the strength of India's startup ecosystem to build ONDC based applications, establishing trust among consumers. Clear guidelines on grievance redressal need to be established. For the purpose, ONDC is conducting a public consultation on 24 issues pertaining to payments, fulfillment of orders, refunds and cancellation, on building trust in ONDC network. Encourage niche products and services. For instance, ONDC can be integrated with one district, one product schemes. What are the e-commerce export Recently, Global Trade Research Institute released a report on realizing India's e-commerce exports potential. What are the highlights? The global business to consumer e-commerce exports are predicted to increase from $800 billion to $8 trillion by 2030. India must plan to export $350 billion or about one third of its total goods through e-commerce by 2030. So keep this in mind. This is the facts. These are the facts about e-commerce export. And what are the recommendations? Create separate customs codes for e-commerce shipments. Focus on developing market intelligence and organizing training for artisans. Launch the India Quality Product label for strict quality control and to prevent counterfeit products. Provisions for e-commerce exports in Foreign Trade Policy 2023. Facilitation of e-commerce export. All FTA free trade policy benefits are to be extended to e-commerce export. The consignment wise cap on e-commerce exports through courier has been raised from 5 lakh to 10 lakh. And Dakghar Niryat Kendras, a hub and spoke model with foreign post offices to facilitate cross-border e-commerce, enable artisans, weavers, craftsmen and MSMEs in the interland and landlocked regions to reach international markets, and e-commerce exports hub. Designated hubs with warehousing facility to be notified to help e-commerce aggregators for easy stocking, customs clearance and returns processing. So these are the some export initiatives by the government. Okay, and next is the telecom sector. What is the status of telecom sector in India? Second largest telecom sector of the world, with its market split into three main segments: wireless, wireline and internet service. Urban rural India, around 66 crore connections are in urban India and 53 crore in rural India. So rural tele density of 59%, and India has second highest number of internet subscribers globally with total internet connections 83.37 crores since June 2021. So keep this in mind. It is one of the largest sector in terms of FDI inflows, contributing around 6% of total FDI inflows in India, and sector contributes directly to more than 2 million employment and indirectly to around 2 million jobs. What are the objectives of the telecom sectors? Broadband for all, creating 4 million additional jobs, enhancing India's contribution to global value chains, ensuring digital sovereignty, enhance contribution of the sector of 8% India's GDP from 6% in 2017. What are the major challenges regarding the telecom sector? Debt-ridden sector with estimated industry debt at over 3.6 lakh crore. The definition of adjusted gross revenue (AGR) has been under the litigation for 14 years. Lack of uniformity in right-of-way rules, pressure on margins due to stiff competition, substantial investment in 5G infrastructure, high spectrum usage charges compared to other countries, illegal mobile boosters impacting the overall cellular network quality, and issues like call drops, and lack of telecom infrastructure in semi-rural and rural areas. So keep this in mind. And next is the steps regarding telecom sector or challenges regarding the telecom sector. 4-year memorandum or moratorium or AGR payments and spectrum dues, rationalization of AGR, adjusted gross revenue by excluding non-telecom revenue from the definition of AGR prospectively, spectrum usage charge for airwaves acquired in future auctions, cumbersome requirement of licenses. Under 1953 customs notification for wireless equipment has been replaced with self-declaration. Auction calendar has been fixed. Design led incentives or DLI scheme, part of the production linked incentive scheme. Amendment to the Indian Telegraph Right of Way Rules 2016 for rapid expansion of the telecom network and creation of telecom technology development fund. So keep this in mind, that are the challenges. Overcome challenges. Okay, and what are the way forwards? Strong health and sanitation protocol to make tourism COVID resilient. Infrastructure status as provided by the Rajasthan government. Stimulus recovery programs to help recover the sector. Training and skill development in hospitality, promotion and marketing, especially with respect to cultural sites. So these are the way forward or some initiatives to tackle the telecom sector. And next is the draft Indian Telecommunication Bill 2022. What is the context? Ministry of Communication has released the draft Indian Telecommunication Bill 2022 for public comments. Purpose of draft Indian Telecommunication Bill to consolidate and amend the existing laws governing the provision, development, expansion and operation of telecommunication services, telecom networks and infrastructure, in addition to the assignment of a spectrum. The existing regulatory framework includes Indian Telegraph Act 1885, Wireless Telegraphy Act 1933 and Telegraph Wires Unlawful Possession Act 1950, that is, even the latest is over 70 years old. And it also seeks to amend the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India TRI Act to dilute the sectoral watchdog's function of being recommendatory body. So these are the some context regarding the recently draft Indian Telecommunication Bill introduced by the Parliament. What are the provisions of the bill? It replaces outdated concepts with new comprehensive and relevant definitions like OTT or over-the-top communication services are included in this bill. It recognizes the exclusive sectoral privilege of the central government and provides a structure to exercise its privileges through the grant of licenses, registrations, authorization. Also, the alternative dispute resolution mechanism for disputes, robust right of way for telecommunication infrastructure within the federal structure to obtain robust right of way in a uniform, non-discriminatory manner, simplifies restructuring framework, that is, the mergers, demergers, acquisitions or other forms of restructuring by complying with the Companies Act 2013 and informing the Department of Telecommunications. What are the potential benefits of the bill? Aligns Indian telecommunication standards with international standards and best practices, broadens telecom service providers definitions to provide level playing field with over-the-top platforms such as WhatsApp, Telegram, Google Meet, etc. Stops harassment for spam calls and frauds by communicating identity, name of the caller to receiver. Increased legal certainty on spectrum management for its optimum utilization with greater clarity on companies' operation and restructuring. Ease of doing business by easing regulatory regime, decriminalization of certain offences, elimination of obsolete penalties and other measures to boost investments. Issues associated with the bill: increased government control over internet shutdowns through framework on internet shutdowns. It raises concerns over availability of an open and free internet to users. It does not clearly outline the availability of safeguards like judicial oversight, rising privacy concerns, etc. Moves away from international practice on regulatory independence by diluting powers. It can hurt investors and consumer confidence by increasing interference in regulation of the sector. Okay, and what are the main features of the bill and aims of the bill? First is telecommunication. Bill recognizes telecommunication as a key driver of socio-economic development, and telecommunication infrastructure network. Bill recognizes telecommunication as a key driver of socio-economic development. Next is telecommunication services. Bill emphasizes on need to ensure availability of affordable, reliable, and secure and universal telecommunication services. Next is spectrum. Bill recognizes spectrum as a valuable and exhaustible natural resources with element of public good, making its efficient use and management vital. So keep this in mind. Okay. And next is the tourism sector. What is the context or what is the facts about tourism sector? 54th rank out of 117 countries in Global Travel and Tourism Development Index 2021 of World Economic Forum, down from 46th in 2019. Okay, the National Council of Applied Economic Research reports that tourism in India won't return to pre-pandemic levels until 2026. In 2020, the sector contributed around 4.7% to the total GDP of the country, a significant decline compared to 7% in 2019, third largest foreign exchange earner for the country until 2019. And these are the ongoing declining status of tourism sector in India due to various dilemmas like COVID-19, GST implementation, and the impact of demonetization as well. What are the key objectives regarding the tourism sector in India? To develop iconic tourist sites into world-class tourist destinations, develop a brand India for medical and wellness tourism, to enhance India's share in meetings, incentives, conferences and exhibitions, that is MICE, tourism to 2% in 5 years from the current share of approximately 1%. And Dharamsala Declaration, achieve $15 billion contribution of tourism to the GDP by 2030, make India a world leader with a revenue goal of $1 trillion by 2047, focus on sustainable and responsible tourism, bring in necessary interventions including visa reformers, ease of travel, traveler-friendly immigration facilities at airports, and openness to international travel. What are the constraints regarding the tourism sector in India? Luxury tourism is heavily taxed, poor infrastructure, accessibility issues and safety concerns, well-funded large business-to-business companies like Make My Trip and Clear Trip giving tough competition to smaller players, regional competition from countries like Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, etc., lack of reliable data and statistics. So these are the some constraints regarding the tourism sector. What are the initiatives taken by the government for tourism boost? Loan guarantee scheme for COVID affected tourism sector, up to rupees 10 lakh collateral free loans. Swadesh Darshan 2.0, integrated development of theme based tourist circuits focusing on sustainable tourism, Prasad scheme, pilgrimage, rejuvenation and spiritual heritage augmentation drive launched by the Ministry of Tourism, iconic tourist sites development project, RCS Udan 3.0 along tourist routes, adopt a heritage, अपनी धरोहर अपनी पहचान प्रोजेक्ट, मेक इन इंडिया एंड इनक्रेडिबल इंडिया 2.0, नेशनल स्ट्रैटेजी एंड रोड मैप फॉर सस्टेनेबल टूरिज्म and draft national strategy for MICE medical and wellness and rural tourism. So keep this in mind, the government initiatives regarding the tourism sector in India. What are the way forwards? Strong health and sanitation protocol to make tourism COVID resilient. Infrastructure status as provided by the Rajasthan government. Stimulus recovery programs to help recover the sector. Training and skill development in hospitality. Promotion and marketing, especially with respect to cultural sites. What is the next news? Sustainable tourism. What is the context? Rapidly growing tourism in hill stations in recent times. It started a discussion on their carrying capacity and sustainable tourism. And about the sustainable tourism, it is the tourism that takes full account of its current, future, economic, social and environmental impacts, addressing the needs of visitors, the industry, environment and host communities. Aim of sustainable tourism includes economic viability of host destination, local prosperity, social equity, employment equality or employment quality, community wellness, well-being, cultural richness, biological diversity and resource efficiency. So these are the aims. As per the United Nations World Tourism Organization or UNWTO, sustainable tourism should follow the three basic principles. What are the three basic principles of sustainable tourism by the United Nations World Tourism Organizations? Environmental sustainability, make optimal use of environmental resources, maintain essential ecological processes, conserve natural heritage and biodiversity. So first is the environmental sustainability, second is socio-cultural sustainability, respect the socio-cultural authenticity of host communities, conserve their built and living cultural heritage and traditional values, contribute to intercultural understanding and tolerance, and third and last is the economic sustainability, ensure viable long-term economic operations, provide socio-economic benefits to all stakeholders that are fairly distributed, contribute to poverty alleviation. So these are the three basic principles of sustainable tourism given by the United Nations World Tourism Organizations. So keep this in mind. Next is the steps taken for sustainable tourism in India. National Strategy for Sustainable Tourism launched by the Ministry of Tourism has identified 7 strategic pillars for the development of sustainable tourism. That is, what is the strategic pillars of national strategy for sustainable tourism? Okay, so what is this? The governance, implementation, promoting environmental sustainability, protecting biodiversity, promoting economic sustainability, promoting social and cultural sustainability, scheme for certification of sustainable tourism, and information education and communication capacity building. So these are the strategic pillars of national strategy for sustainable tourism. And what are the way forwards to boost the tourism sector in India? Strengthening community-based tourism, establishment of regulated tourism practices with promotion of sustainable agendas, levying green tax on tourist vehicles, proper solid waste management systems, etc., like Bhutan in last year, levying the green tax on Indian visitors. Okay. Next section is infrastructure. Under infrastructure, there is the public goods. What is the context? The public goods are those that are available to all at zero or negligible marginal cost, non-excludable, and that can be enjoyed over and over again by anyone without diminishing the benefits they deliver to others, non-rival. So these are the public goods that are available for all. So keep this in mind, the definition of public goods. What are the scopes of public goods? Local scope, public goods such as local public school, parks. National public goods such as national security, law enforcement, etc. Regional public goods such as public health, trade, regulatory systems. Next is global public goods such as environment, culture, technological progress, etc. What are the significance of public goods? Crucial role in socio-economic and political progress, reduction of poverty and inequality, and achievement of sustainable development goals, addressing critical common challenges such as disaster management, droughts, food insecurity, etc., managing unevenly distributed risks such as climate change, cross-border epidemics, security risks, etc. Public goods are excellent investment as the resultant outcome is huge. And what are the challenges in providing public goods? Lack of incentives and free rider problem, as individual cannot be charged for their use irrespective of their contribution. Late realization of benefits in the far future while the costs are realized today. Externalities or spillovers render the benefit for any single individual too small or too large. Weakest link problem, as success achieved can be eroded by a single act of non-compliance. Summation problem, as provisioning of public good for all requires cooperation at every level of governance and citizenry. And remember about the tourism sector in India for essay paper as well. Okay. So here the provision of public goods in India. India is becoming a leader in digital public goods such as Aadhaar, UPI, land records, etc. Vision of universal healthcare through Ayushman Bharat Yojana, one health approach and one schemes. Provision of quality education to all through reforms such as national education policy and vocational education. Environmental conservation through its mission life for environment, climate pledges, phase out of fossil based energy sources, affordable housing for all through various schemes such as PM Awas Yojana, tap water connection to every household under Har Ghar Jal Yojana. And what are way forward? Establishment of a strong institutional framework for assessing the needs and provide public goods, enforcement of various regulations and taxation measures to mobilize resources and eliminate free rider problem, focus on inclusive government formation with representation of all sectors of society, increase the demand of public goods through awareness campaign, information and communication technology workshops, etc. Incentivize private sector and civil society to increase their involvement in provisioning of public goods. So keep this in mind regarding the public goods in India. And what are the digital public infrastructures? What is the context? Bank for International Settlements endorsed India's data empowerment protection architecture. And what is the DEPA. DEPA is a joint public-private effort for an improved data governance approach. It creates a digital framework that allows users to share their data on their own terms through a third-party entity, consent managers. DEPA's first application has been in the financial sector for greater inclusion and economic growth. It is being tested in the health sector as well as others. It forms the final layer of India Stack, a set of acute APIs that allows government, businesses, startups, and developers to utilize a unique digital infrastructure aimed at presence-less, paperless, and cashless service delivery. Next is about digital public infrastructure. Digital public infrastructure are solutions and systems that enable the provision of essential society-wide functions and services in public and private sectors. And this includes digital forms of identification and verification, civil registration, payment, digital transactions and money transfers, data exchange, and information systems. Digital public infrastructure was introduced in India in 2009 when Aadhaar was first launched. Digital public goods are types of open source software models and standards that countries can use to operationalize their digital public infrastructure. Examples of DPGs include India Stack, UPI, Beam UPI, Aadhaar based interface, Aadhaar ID, etc. What are the digital public infrastructures? Solutions and systems that enable essential society-wide functions and services. What is the process? So pause the video and read about this process about the digital public infrastructure. Okay. And next is the developing public digital infrastructure. Public digital infrastructure and what are the outcomes? Jan Dhan Aadhaar mobile phone and digital public goods like digital verification, digital signature, digital repositories or DigiLocker, digital payments that is UPI, open network for digital commerce and account aggregator frameworks. So these are the public digital infrastructure. Next is the digital financial architecture like digitalized GST system or goods and services network and e-way bills, digital identities like Aadhaar, eShram portal, Swanidhi, Udyam portal, etc. Unified payment interface that is UPI. Next is the what are the outcomes of digital public goods and Jan Dhan Aadhaar mobile phone. Outcomes is financial inclusion. Population covered with bank accounts increased from 53% in 2015-16 to 78% in 2019-21 as per National Family Health Survey. What are the outcomes of digital public goods? Like these: greater financial inclusion and access to credit, incentivizing higher consumption and investment, leading to higher economic growth, opening avenues for e-commerce market access, credit availability for smaller businesses, strengthen the economic growth in medium term. So keep this in mind. And next outcomes regarding digital financial architecture: formalization of business transactions through GSTN and e-way bill. Number of GST taxpayers nearly doubled from 2017 to 2022. Greater formalization of economy and workforce. Digital identities included informal groups in formal economic net such as street vendors through Swanidhi, MSMEs through Udyam, unorganized workers through eShram. Digital identity simplified and enabled access to formal credit for these groups. More than 32.7 lakh street vendors have availed of a first loan of 10,000 under the PM Swanidhi scheme to the street vendors. Formalization of transactions even for smallest of amounts with UPI. And what are the unified digital interface for simplified governance? That is the National Single Window System for Business Approvals, Jan Samarth Portal for Credit Linked Incentive, Credit Linked Central Government Scheme, Umang app for access to central and state government services, PM Gati Shakti, GIS based platform bringing together multiple ministries. And what are the outcomes of these? Enhance the ease of doing business through the integration of existing systems, reduction in logistics cost due to integrated planning and coordinated implementation of multimodal infrastructure connectivity projects under the PM Gati Shakti scheme. Next is Gati Shakti. What is the context? The Gati Shakti or National Master Plan of Multimodal Connectivity aims to expedite infrastructure project implementation in India. It is essentially a digital platform to bring 16 ministries together for integrated planning and coordinated implementation of infrastructure connectivity projects. What are the infrastructure bottlenecks in India? Lack of coordination among different government departments in project planning and implementation, resulting in duplication of efforts and wasteful expenditure. Frequent time and cost overruns in project implementation due to difficulties in land acquisition, coordination issues, bureaucratic hurdles, etc. Difficulties in funding due to long gestation periods, lack of skilled labor, workers, and effective management practices, high logistics costs, and inefficiencies in transport sectors. So these are the some bottlenecks regarding infrastructure. What are the significance of Gati Shakti? Common vision and coordination in project design and implementation, reducing duplication efforts and bringing higher efficiency. Real-time monitoring and review of projects will result in avoidance of time and cost overruns, will provide digital backbone to national infrastructure pipelines, will give boost to creation of new economic zones, clusters, corridors, etc. It will result in improved productivity and competitiveness and will reduce logistics costs. So these are some significance of PM Gati Shakti initiative. Next is the 6 pillars of Gati Shakti. For example, comprehensiveness, inclusion of all existing and planned initiatives of various ministries in one portal, prioritization of projects through cross-sectoral interactions, optimization, selection of most optimum planning for projects after identification of critical gaps, synchronization activities of each department and different layers of governance, analytical GIS-based spatial planning and analytical tools enabling better implementation visibility, dynamic visualization, review and monitoring of progress of projects with regular updates. Next is, so these are the 6 pillars of Gati Shakti. Okay. Next is the National Logistics Policy. What is the context? The PM unveiled the National Logistics Policy to promote seamless flow of goods across the country and improve Indian goods competitiveness in domestic as well as global markets. What is the logistics ecosystem in India? The Indian logistics sector is estimated to be over $250 billion in 2021 and expected to reach $380 billion by 2025 to improve infrastructure and logistics services. Government has taken several initiatives for systematic infrastructure development for improved efficiency, such as PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan to build world-class infrastructure and fill the missing gaps for a holistic and integrated development. It encompasses ongoing initiatives like Bharatmala Pariyojana, Sagarmala, etc. National Rail Plan to create a future-ready railway system by 2030. The logistics is across different states. Leads index to assess logistics performance of states and union territories and further improve their logistics performance. Several other reforms such as paperless export-import trade process through e-Sanchit, faceless assessment for customs, e-way bills, FASTag, GST, etc. for increasing efficiency and other benefits. And need for national logistics policy. High logistics cost when compared to global benchmarks. The cost of logistics in India is extremely high, 13 to 14% of GDP, as compared to other major economies with 8 to 9% of GDP within it. Transportation accounts for most of India's logistics cost, around 53%, followed by warehousing 12% and material handling 10%. So these are the facts about logistics cost in India. And poor logistics performance ranking. India ranked 38th in 2023 Global Logistics Performance Index given by the World Bank. So keep this in mind that the Global Logistics Performance Index launched by the World Bank, and India is 23rd ranked. Low competitiveness due to high logistics cost. Indian goods lack competitiveness both in domestic as well as export markets. Over dependence on roads. Despite nearly double cost of road transport in comparison to railways and waterways, 64.5% of goods are transported through roads compared to 25% globally. Low investments. High cost inefficiencies in intramodal logistics act as a hurdle in attracting large-scale investment in India to turn it into the manufacturing powerhouses. And governance issues in India, the logistics sector involves 20 government agencies, 40 partner government agencies, 37 export promotion councils, 500 certifications with over 10,000 commodities, reducing ease of doing business. Disintegrated network. India has about 200 shipping agencies, 36 logistics services, 129 inland container depots, 168 container freight stations, 50 IT ecosystem, banks and insurance agencies, larger working in silos. So these are the some challenges or need for the national logistics policy. What are the targets of national logistics policy? Reduce cost of logistics in India to be comparable to global benchmarks by 2030. Logistics Performance Index ranking endeavor to be among top 25 countries by 2030 and create data-driven decision support mechanism for an efficient logistics ecosystem. So these are the targets. Keep this in mind. Okay. Next is the National Logistics Policy. What is the National Logistics Policy of India? National Logistics Policy also includes Comprehensive Logistics Action Plan or CLAP to implement the policy with 8 key areas. What are 8 key areas? Integrated digital logistics system to develop a system of unified logistics interface. Standardization of physical assets and benchmarking service quality standards. Third is logistics, human resources development and capacity building to develop an overarching logistics human resource strategy. Fourth is state engagement by supporting development of state or city level logistics plans. Set up institutional framework at city or state level, measure and monitor action by state. Export-import logistics to address infrastructure and procedural gaps in connectivity and create efficient and reliable logistics network. Sixth is service improvement framework for improving regulatory interface to enable seamlessness between sectors. Seventh is sectoral plan for efficient logistics to be developed for each sector. And last is facilitation of development of logistics parks. So these are 8 pillars of national logistics policy. What are the 4 pillars of national logistics policy? That is unified logistic interface platform, that is ULIP. It is a 3-tier structure to bring all the digital services related to transportation sector on a single portal, freeing the exporters from a host of very long and cumbersome processes. And integration of digital system. Under the integration of digital system, 30 different systems of 7 departments are integrated, including data from the road transport, railways, customs, aviation and commerce departments. And ease of logistics, e-logs. E-logs is a digital platform for industry association to take up any operational and performance issue with the government directly. Next is the System Improvement Group. System Improvement Group will monitor all logistics projects regularly through a group of officers from ministries concerned. Next is the potential challenges to national logistics policy. Cooperation from all states for timely regulatory approvals falling under the state's jurisdiction. For example, presently only about half the states have developed their respective logistics policies. Inadequate trained manpower due to lack of courses and programs on logistics and supply chain management. No proper system for job role identification, competency mapping and curriculum approval, ensuring digital connectivity to complement the logistics policy. Acceptance of digital technologies by transporters due to issues of digital literacy and anti-competitive practices by transport unions. Limited alternatives to first and last mile connectivity provided by roads. What are the way forward regarding national logistics policy? The recent All India Council for Technical Education initiative of forming a task force to focus on developing and implementing technical and skilling courses on logistics and supply chain management with premier institutions across the country is a good step. Further work could be done on aligning states policy with national logistic policy and ensuring that all states have a logistic policy in practice, encouraging private sector investment and engaging transport unions to move towards a new work culture, in creating a support system, financial education and technological to reduce logistics cost. So keep this in mind. Okay. The next is multimodal logistics park. What is the context? Recently the government has awarded the contract of setting up India's first multimodal logistics park near Chennai to Resilient Industries. And what is about the multimodal logistics park? A multimodal logistics park is an intermodal freight handling establishment comprising warehouses, dedicated cold chain facilities, freight or container terminals and bulk cargo terminals. It eases and optimizes merchandise movement via road, rail, waterway and air. Under the PM Gati Shakti National Master Plan, the Government of India has announced that contracts will be awarded through public-private partnership model for implementation of multimodal logistics parks. Okay, so keep this in mind. Next is Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs had mandated Ministry of Road Transport and Highways to develop 35 multimodal logistics parks as hub and spoke model across the country. What are the framework for effective multimodal logistics parks? Technology-driven freight information management, integrated solutions, one-stop shop for all services, warehousing, customs, clearance, internal terminal, and others. Multimodal transport improve road, rail, and especially inland water trade. Value-added services or provisions for packaging, labeling, and others, like in food processing sectors, large-scale freight, upcoming industrial clusters, and consumption centers to produce higher freight volumes. So these are the framework of effective multimodal logistics parks. What are the significance of multimodal logistic parks? Reduce logistics cost. It aims to reduce India's logistics cost from the current about 14% of GDP to less than 10% of GDP. Warehousing cost reduction by shifting warehouses from cities to logistics parks. Inventory planning. Regional logistics parks can provide end-to-end visibility of inventory, collaboration, agility, and optimization, achieving greater efficiency through technology. Multimodal logistics parks with appropriate information technology infrastructure can help in digitizing the traditional supply chain, supporting big data analytics and disruptive technologies such as artificial intelligence. Proper utilization of assets due to lower transit time and early freeing up of the goods, vehicles, and the other hardware for the other business or purposes. And pollution reduction, increased freight movement on higher side trucks and rail with enable in reduction in CO2 emission. And what are the challenges in setting up of multimodal logistics parks? Skewed modal transport mix. In India, 60% of freight moves by road, which is significantly larger than in many developed economies. Coastal movement and inland waterways are at nascent stage. Rail transport is marginal, despite being 45% cheaper per ton kilometer than road, due to adverse pricing and rank booking practices and lack of intermodal facilities to enable easy transfer. Procedural complexities, multiplicity of government agencies involved in setting up multimodal logistics parks, which may hamper ease of business. And land unavailability of land at an affordable rate and the challenges of land acquisition. Underdeveloped material handling infrastructure, warehousing landscape is highly unorganized with the presence of many small private and unorganized warehouses. Inefficient service model. Efficiency is compromised as many firms try to compete through the factor advantage of low wages, which have led to hiring poorly skilled personnel, thereby hampering service quality. What are the way forward? That is improve connectivity. Identify gaps in trunk and multimodal interlinkages and bridge them while developing terminals for efficient multimodal freight transfer. Increasing the share of rail transport, optimizing truck use, promoting use of fuel efficient vehicles and alternative fuels. Facilitate private sector participation. To encourage greater private participation, the multimodal logistics parks could develop a model private partner public-private partnership framework to define the role and interdependencies between central and state governments and private players. Single window approval, centralized multimodal logistic park approvals through a single window system, identifying location, optimize the location of park and easy land availability, adopting digital solution, cutting edge information technology for delivery management also plays an important role for multimodal logistic parks to work effectively. And what are the social infrastructure? This is important that because of the new infrastructure launched by the Government of India. 14 social sector ministries or departments have been onboarded under the Gati Shakti initiative. And what is the context? Ministry of Panchayati Raj, Department of Health and Family Welfare, Department of Post, etc. have been onboarded under the PM Gati Shakti initiative. What is the social infrastructure? There is no universal definition of social infrastructure, but the social infrastructure generally refers to those systems that deliver services upon which the health and well-being of societies dependent. Education, sports, art and culture, medical and public health, etc. are included under the social infrastructure. So keep this in mind, this definition about social infrastructure. And what are the significance of investing in social infrastructure? Inclusive growth, that improve access to economic opportunities for all, poverty alleviation due to improved quality education and good health, environmental sustainability due to clear water and sanitation, non-polluting sources of energy, safe disposal of solid waste, etc. Sustainable growth through challenges created by rapid urbanization and to ensure the sustainable growth of cities. Increase in productivity and innovation due to improved quality of life and increased labor productivity, important for survival of economic and political structures as it facilitates avoiding social unrest. So these are the significance about social infrastructure. What is the key difference between economic and social infrastructure? So what are the parameters regarding economic and social infrastructure and their features? Economic change versus social change. Economic infrastructure, the is for economic activity and stimulate demand. For example, investment in power, transport and communications act as growth enablers. And under social infrastructure, investments in school, hospitals, water and sanitation, etc. act as agents of social change. And commercial aspect versus social considerations. Under economic infrastructure, guided by a user pay principle or demand based revenue streams to encourage private sector participation, which is guided by profit motives. Under social infrastructure, as financial returns from social infrastructure projects are poor, these are largely supported by and funded by the government's budgetary resources. And risk allocation under economic infrastructure, the shared risk framework with certain risks being transferred to the private sector. Under social infrastructure, risks are largely borne or retained by the public sector. And standard of living versus quality of life. Under economic infrastructure focuses on aspects that contribute to providing a better standard of living. Under social infrastructure supports the delivery of social services which improves the quality of life of citizens. And economic growth versus human capital. Under economic infrastructure helps achieve growth objectives of nation and builds up the material capital. Under social infrastructure focuses on the economic development that encapsulates human resource development. It is vital for human capital formation. And hurdles in creating the effective social infrastructure. First is incentiveness of existing infrastructure, inadequate funds, low private participation, technological barriers, and disparities in quality of social infrastructure. What are the way forwards? Engaging the private sector is important. Social impact bonds. A social impact bond is a financing mechanism in which governments enter into agreements with social service providers for the delivery of predefined social outcomes, setting and monitoring standards to ensure reliability, affordability, and accessibility of services. Better convergence and coordination among ministries for effective implementation of initiatives. learning from best practices. Porta Cabins is an innovative education initiative that has helped reduce the number of out-school children in left-wing extremism affected villages of Dantewada district in Chhattisgarh. Arogya Keralam project in Kerala emphasizes a community-based approach to palliative health care. So these are the some facts regarding the social infrastructure. Keep this in mind. Bridging the digital divide through internet access, digital literacy, and enhance the efficiency and effectiveness of public service delivery. And next is development financial institutions. What is the context? The government backed National Bank for Financial Infrastructure and Development to start operation from Q1 of financial year 23. 1 trillion infrastructure lending target is set for the year. What is the financial infrastructure and development objectives and their significance? Financing medium to long gestation periods with greater risks in comparison to acceptable limits of commercial banks and other financial institutions. Support function. Apart from financial help, many digital finance infrastructures provide financial, managerial, and technical advice and consultancy to business firms for overall economic growth of the nation. Diversify of options. Based on DFI's functional classification, enterprises can get funds through the bonds and debentures of the companies, underwriting of securities, refinancing of loans, and credit guarantee for loans from other foreign and domestic sources. Next is building goodwill. Loan from DFIs help companies in building goodwill, helping them to borrow from capital market and other sources as well. Crisis funding. The DFIs help companies even in crisis or times of recession when other sources are not available or have high cost attached. Lesser repayment burden. Through moratorium and easy repayment options for loan, the loan repayment burden on businesses is lesser than from other sources of funds. And the functional classification of all India digital financial institutions. Term lending institutions. They extend long-term finance to different industrial sectors, for example, NCI Limited, IDFC Limited, etc. Refinancing institutions, that is NABARD, SIDBI, and National Housing Bank. Specialized institutions such as PFC Limited, IRFC Limited, and investment institutions such as LIC, GIC. So keep this in mind. Okay. And what are the challenges regarding digital financial institutions for financing? Government issues. Being primarily owned by the government, DFIs are vulnerable to political interference affecting their decision making competence. DFIs are supposed to be ahead of time with a strategy to meet the ambitious societal and economic change goals as well as the risks. Raising such capabilities and skills within the management is a challenging task. Financial stability issues. DFIs have important role of development and often it takes precedence over profitability, leading to losses. Intense competition. Increased flow of foreign funds and options to raise money from outside has increased challenges for DFIs to retain their low-cost advantage withstand competition. And what are the limitations of digital financial institutions? Time-consuming and rigid loan criteria impose restrictions on the companies like on dividend payment. Many appoint their nominees on the board of directors. So these are the three limitations. Okay. So what are the way forwards? Allow flexible organization structure, a prerequisite for agile organization and to meet intense competition. Improve quality of board deliberation for correct positioning and a business strategy to establish clear mandates and meet future goals. Operational autonomy. For example, performance-based remuneration can help in retention of high-performing staff, provide adequate safeguards for decision-making to address risk aversion or fear of extra compliance, and capacity building to maintain operational efficiency under changing environment and impart new set of skills to remain competent as well as provide better support to others, and embed financial sustainability principles in product structures and pricing to help DFIs in targeting private retail investors looking for low yield, low risk and low term assets. Adoption of board corporate governance principles by unlisted DFIs based on SEBI guidelines to incorporate best good governance practices with greater coordination and cooperation. 10.6 shipping sectors. So keep this in mind. Next is the port sector in India. What is the context? 364 billion people are below poverty line in India. More than 16% of the population in India is multidimensionally poor. 12.3% decline in extreme poverty in India from 22.5% in 2011 to 10.2% in 2019. Two-thirds of the world's poor live in conflict-affected countries. And this is regarding the poverty of population in India, not the port sector. Okay. So it is the poverty section, not a port sector. Okay. So not need to remember this. Next is the significance of port development. Economy, reducing logistics cost, blue economy and security, ensuring safety of strategic installations, curtailing transnational organized crime at sea, keeping an eye on maritime traffic, international relations, countering the influence of China, regional integration, net security provided in the Indian Ocean region, and environment, good design of ports for sustainable development, and social inclusive development, sustainable livelihood. And the governance of ports, that is major port and minor port, and the governance model. So under major ports, they fall in the union list of the constitution and are administered under the Indian Ports Act 1908 and the Major Port Trust Act 1963, and minor ports are managed at the state level under the federal structure and under the 7th schedule of the constitution under state list. And governance model, until the engagement of Major Ports Authorities Act 2021, the 11 ports owned by the Indian government widely followed a hybrid format of the service port model and the landlord model. So these are the governance of port. Hurdles in enhancing India's port connectivity, infrastructure bottleneck, regulatory bottleneck, issues related to investment, labor issues, less competitive on global front. So keep this in mind. These are the hurdles. And what are the steps taken to enhance India's port connectivity? Ease of doing business, dealing with infrastructural bottleneck like Unnati operational efficiency, improvement capacity expansion of existing major ports, new port development of transshipment terminal, and legislative reforms such as MPA Act 2021, cooperation with neighboring countries, creating of National Center of Excellence for Green Port and Shipping. What are the way forward? Regulatory reforms, opening up the dredging market, coordinated efforts for last mile connectivity of ports, dealing with the issues of financing, cruise tourism as a revenue source, investment opportunities in bunkering, improving infrastructure, prioritization of projects under the Sagarmala multimodal connectivity, smart ports and blockchain logistics, policy interventions to promote inland waterways, navigable route development enhancing last mile connectivity, development of industrial corridors, promoting passenger transportation, ensuring adequate air clearance. So keep this in mind. Next is green shipping. What is the context? Center sets 2030 as target for India to become global hub for green shipping. What is the initiatives of green shipping? Green tug transition programs. Program will start the green hybrid tugs, which will be powered by green hybrid propulsion systems and will subsequently adopt non-fossil fuel solutions like methanol, ammonia, hydrogen, and target is initial green tugs to start working in all major ports by 2025. At least 50% of all tugs are likely to be converted into green tugs by 2030. India's first center of excellence in green ports and shipping aims at empowering Make in India in port, coastal and inland water transport, and Harit Sagar the Green Port Guidelines 2023. That is, it envisages ecosystem dynamics in port development, operation and maintenance while aligning with working with nature concept and minimizing impact on biotic components of harbor ecosystem. It lays emphasis on use of clean or green energy in port operation, developing port capabilities for storage, handling and bunkering greener fuels with green hydrogen, green ammonia, green methanol, ethanol, etc. Ports must meet at least 60% of the electricity needs via renewables by 2030 and 90% by 2047. Ports must have at least one LNG liquefied natural gas bunkering station by 2030, setting up electric vehicle charging stations in and around port areas by 2025, provisions for adopting global green reporting initiative standards. What are the other initiatives for green shipping? That is, India has been selected as first country under IMO Green Voyage 2050 project. Maritime Vision 2030 provides for sustainable maritime sector and a blue economy. Certain ports to be developed as hydrogen hubs capable of handling, storing and generation of green hydrogen by 2030. So keep this in mind. And next is inland waterways in India. What is the context? Recently, Prime Minister unveiled inland waterways projects worth over rupees 1000 crore to increase transport, trade and tourism in eastern India. 13 national waterways now in operation. So pause the video and look at this map and remember the major inland waterways like National Waterways 1, National Waterways 2, this is here National Waterway 3, 4, okay, and some others like this and etc. So these are the some major ports. Okay, so you can remember these ports. Okay, and next is inaugurated inland waterways projects. Haldia Multimodal Terminal in West Bengal under Jal Marg Vikas project. Maritime Skill Development Center for the Northeast in Guwahati in the National Waterway Port number 2. more than 60 community jetties being constructed along the river Ganga to boost economic activities and improve the livelihood of local communities in the region. Potential of inland waterways transport. National Waterways Act 2016 declares a total of 111 national waterways. Out of these, 17,980 km of the river and 2256 km of canals can be used by mechanical and mechanized crafts. Inland water transport in India forms only 0.5% of total transport. It is very less than other countries compared to 42% in Netherlands, USA 8.3 and Europe 7%. Road has freight movement around 65% and rail has around 27%. As per Maritime India Vision 2030 document, cargo movement on national waterways is targeted as 200 million metric ton by 2030 from current level of 83.61 million metric ton during financial year 2020-21. What are the benefits of inland waterways? Capital savings, the capacity augmentation of navigation on national water through the National Waterway 1 through the GMVP estimated to entail a capital expenditure of rupees 2.53 crore per kilometer only. Compared to this, road and rail each cost over rupees 5 crore per kilometer, and savings in transportation cost. Inland waterway would have positive impact on the overall logistics cost as a greener mode of transport. Next is the environmental friendly use of modern inland water vessels with natural gas, LNG or CNG as fuel with reduced emission of sulfur oxide, nitrogen oxide 70%, particulate matter 95% and CO2 25%. Other factors include least fuel consumption per ton kilometer. LNG CNG engines have lower noise level than diesel engines. Improved river flow due to improvement or augmentation of navigation facilities and enhanced regional trade. Inland waterway give boost to trade between India and Bangladesh, India and Myanmar through Kaladan project. Other benefits increase in economic opportunities, access to local communities, etc. And what are the initiatives of development of inland waterways? Jal Marg Vikas project on National Waterways 1. MOUs have been signed with Bangladesh in order to reduce the logistics cost of cargo. Integrated National Transportation Waterways Grid study by Inland Waterways Authority of India. Sagarmala projects to expand inland waterways to drive industrial development, interlinking of rivers project. And last is proposed allocation of 2.5% of the proceeds of Central Road Fund for waterways. So keep this in mind. And what are the challenges in developing national waterways? Very low level of investment, high cost of development of ancillary facilities, perception of inland waterways transport investment as high risk investment, and technical challenges such as development and maintenance of fairway width of 2.5 to 3.0 meter length, irregular siltation, speed control regulations to avoid bank erosion and safety of other users, safety against cross ferries, etc. What are the way forward to reform in the inland waterway transport? Setting up navigational infrastructure and working with nature. Water traffic should not impact the aquatic biodiversity. Measures like ban on dredging in protected habitat areas should be adopted. Niti Aayog in its action plan recommended to increase the connectivity and efficiency of inland waterways by streamlining the governance of inland waterways, ease restriction on sea river movement, develop inland waterway transport, develop measures for round the year navigation systems, So these are the initiatives taken by the Niti Aayog. Okay, next is mining. Next section is mining and power sector. What is first is mining sector. What is the context? India continues to be largely self-sufficient in minerals, which constitute primary raw materials supplied to industries such as iron and steel and aluminum. India is deficient in kyanite, magnesite, rock phosphate, manganese ore, etc., which are imported to meet demand. Indian mining industry is characterized by a large number of small operational mines. In terms of value of mineral production, about 97% comes from 7 states. Only 10% of the obvious geological potential area of India has been explored. What are the key targets? Accelerate the growth of mining sector from 3% in 2017-18 to 14% with an average growth of 8.5% during 2018-23. Double the area explored from 10% of obvious geological potential area to 20%. Increase the job contribution from the current 10 million to 15 million in 2020-23. What are the policies or initiative taken by the government? Mines and Mineral Development Regulation Act 1957 and amendment in 2015 and 2020. Pradhan Mantri, and recently also Parliament has introduced the amendment of Mines and Mineral 2023. Pradhan Mantri Khaniज Kshetra Kalyan Yojana and District Mineral Foundation, National Mineral Policy 2019 and Shakti Scheme for harnessing and allocating koila transparently in India. Project Sudur Drishti between Indian Bureau of Mines and National Remote Sensing Center, and a scheme for acceleration of private exploration agencies for undertaking prospecting operations of minerals. What are the challenges? Regulatory challenges such as no guarantee of obtaining mining lease even if a successful exploration is done by a company. Mining licenses being awarded on a first come first serve basis in principle, but there is no transparent system. Inadequate infrastructure facilities such as absence of proper transportation and logistics, etc. Sustainability challenges as 40% of mining proposals failed to get environmental clearance. Environmental pollution, air pollution from surface mines, coal mines and smelting operations. Water pollution due to leaching of heavy metal and toxic elements. Land pollution due to activities like blasting and surface mining. Next is health and safety challenges as mining operations can be extremely hazardous. Illegal rat hole mining such as in Meghalaya. And what are the way forwards? Facilitating private party participation in exploring through reforms in licensing policy, single window and time-bound environment and forest clearances. A national data repository of mineral resources should be created and uploaded online. Robust and transparent public reporting mechanism for exploring firms, and capping taxation and other levies at a maximum of 40% of the sale value as per global practices. Effective utilization of PMKKY and DMF funds on drinking water or environment preservation and pollution control or health care, education, skill development or welfare of women, children, aged and disabled people or sanitation. So these are the way forward, so keep this in mind. Okay, and these are the minerals, some minerals in India given in this map. You can pause the video and see this. Okay, and next is the gold mining in India. What is the context? The center is planning out a detailed roadmap to identify potential gold bearing regions to be developed by 2030 and boost gold production in the country with private participation. What is the overview of gold industry in India? India is the world's second biggest consumer of gold after China. India's gold mine production has the potential to reach 20 ton per year, up from 1.6 ton in 2020. Gold reserves and resources: more than 501 million tons reserve in India. Mineral inventory data. Okay, according to National Mineral Inventory data, Karnataka accounts for 88% of the total reserves, with the Dharwad creation being most significant geological formation for gold mineralization. So these are the facts. Over 50% of gold mineral resources, gold deposits that are potentially economically viable are located in Karnataka, 33% Rajasthan, 6% Bihar, 5% Andhra Pradesh, and remaining 6% across other 8 states. India's gold imports rose more than 33% to $46 billion during 2021-22 from $34 billion in the previous year. Thus, it is crucial for India to move along the path of self-reliance in gold industry. What are the significance of enhancing domestic gold production? Meet high domestic demand. India accounts for around 25% of world's gold demand. Decreased dependency on imports. More than 89% of gold supply in India, resulting in price volatility and adverse impact on the current account deficit. Next is boost national GDP and increase state level and national taxes royalties. Okay, increase employment opportunities, especially in remote areas, attract foreign direct investment, initiate and support associated service industries like jewelry, fabrication, refining, etc., especially in small and medium enterprises. What are the constraints in enhancing domestic gold production? High risk of business activity, poorly developed infrastructure in gold mining areas, complex regulatory process for securing approval for mining license, shortage of skilled manpower, technological upgradation required in mining and refining space to create efficiencies in the operations and meet global standards, poor quality of geological database, environmental concerns related to gold mining. So these are some constraints. What is measures taken in India to encouraging gold mining? Amendments in Mines and Mineral Development and Regulation Act 1957 and 2015 introduced in a new regime of granting mineral concessions. To 2020 allowed state governments to take advance action for auction of mineral blocks. 2021 enabled transparent auction of 500 mining blocks of various minerals including gold. National Minerals Exploration Policy 2016 aims to stimulate non-fuel and non-coal mining exploration by allowing private companies to enter into a transparent bidding process conducted via auction. National Mineral Policy 2019 provided more streamlined permit award method with simple, transparent and accountable processes. Minerals Evidence of Mineral Contents Rules 2015 amended in 2021 to allow auction of compromise license for deep-seated minerals including gold. 100% FDI is permitted under the automatic route. So keep this in mind about the gold mining. What are the way forward? Promote domestic manufacturing of mining equipment using Make in India program. Enhance connectivity of gold mining regions. Make gold mining viable and attractive to investors. Next is consider making available the risk capital for the long-term capital-intensive mining projects to attract investments. Improve quality and availability of digital data covering geological database. Draw comprehensive taxation policy to align India's taxation framework with the strategic needs of the gold mining sector. Promotion sustainable mining practices. Next is the lithium deposits in India? What is the context? Geological Survey of India has for the first time established lithium inferred resources of 5.9 million tons in Salhemana area of Raisi district of Jammu and Kashmir. More about news. The seventh largest deposit of the rare element, accounting for roughly 5.7% of all reserves in the world. Previously in India, lithium reserves have been reported from Karnataka's Mandya district. So this is the facts about the lithium reserves found in India. Keep this in mind. Okay. And lithium reserves in the world: maximum in Bolivia, then Argentina, then US, Chile, Australia, China, then India, Germany. Especially remember this: India in this position, Democratic Republic of Congo, Canada, and others. And global distribution of lithium. So remember this through mapping system. Okay. Significance of lithium funding. Lithium finding reduce import dependency and boost to manufacturing and exports. India presently imports lithium from Hong Kong, China, USA, Australia, and Argentina. Next is transformation of mobility. India's national mission on transformative mobility and battery storage for transitioning towards electric vehicles and green mobility. Fulfillment of net zero emission goal by 2070. Lithium is a key component of lithium-ion batteries used in electric vehicles, harnessing solar power, solar energy, etc. Strengthening of critical mineral supply chain for emerging technologies. Risk associated with lithium mining in the region: high risk in ecological sensitive Himalayas, environmental pollution, stress on water resources, CO2 emissions. So these are the factual facts about the lithium mining in the region and what are the consequences from this. And next is way ahead. Regulation of lithium mining. Lithium mining and extraction can be pursued in a regulated manner to ensure sustainable mining. Diversification of supply chain. Till India utilizes its reserves, strategic agreements with international partners are critical for ensuring unrestricted supply of lithium, encouraging efforts to expedite mineral exploration in India, and assessment of socio-ecological impacts of lithium extraction needs to be assessed for ensuring sustainable and inclusive development of the region. What are the related news? Hyderabad-based National Geophysical Research Institute has found large deposits of 15 rare earth elements in Andhra Pradesh, Anantapur district. About rare earth elements: the definition of rare earth element is the critical elements which are found very rarely. Okay, and rare earth elements are a group of 17 silvery white soft heavy metals that occur together in periodic table. Okay, so this is the fact. Yttrium and 15 lanthanide elements. These are the important for prelims. Okay, so you can remember this. Next is the coal and oil sector in India. What is the context and status of coal and oil sector in India? 50% of India's overall energy mix comes from coal. 28% of India's overall energy mix comes from oil. 893 million tons of coal is produced by India every year. About 5 million barrels of oil consumed per day, with 87.6% of India's oil needs being fulfilled through imports in financial year 20. 70% of India's energy need come from West Asia. Overall, India's primary energy demands is expected to nearly double to 1,123 million tons of oil equivalent by 2040. So these are the facts regarding coal and oil sector in India. What are the key objectives? Increasing the geologically explored areas from 10 to 20%, increase the growth of the mining sector, reduce imports of oil and gas, more than double the oil and gas exploration areas by 2030, boost the use of natural gas in India's primary energy mix from the current 6.2 to 15% 2030, increase the job contribution, commercialize 50% of strategic petroleum reserves. So keep this in mind. Okay, what are the initiatives or schemes taken by the government? Ujjwala Yojana, Pehli scheme, Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Shakti scheme, simplified mining plan approval and permission for commercial coal mining, 100% FDI allowed. Okay, and next is obligatory purchase mechanism scheme launched by the government for renewable purchase obligation. In the lines of renewable purchase obligation, what are the constraints? Land for coal mining, tendency to expand open cast mining, limited competition and private participation in the coal market, high import dependence, declining domestic crude oil and natural gas production, rising oil and gas prices. So keep this in mind. What are the way forwards? Diversifying and limiting the source of imports, GST to enable input tax credit, detailed exploration, flexibility in contract terms to make stranded oil and gas assets, shared infrastructure for evacuation, city gas distribution. So keep this in mind. Next is draft coal logistics policy. So remember the facts about this draft coal logistics policy. So Ministry of Coal has sought feedback on draft coal policy, logistic policy 2022. Need for coal logistics policy, enhance coal evacuation infrastructure, reduce freight cost to improve overall coal competitiveness, achieve domestic coal production capacity that is 1500 million tons per annum by 2030, bring investment in India as part of the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan. So remember these facts. Okay, not need much learn about this. Okay, coal and challenges of coal evacuation, lack of investment, non-availability of wagons and congestion, limited coal transportation by alternate transportation models, limited logistics planning in multimodal transport, higher coal logistics cost owing to inherent characteristics. And what are the way forward? Focus on coal gasification, improve transport and infrastructure driven by PPP model, restructuring of railway networks, and research and exploration will be enhanced, engaging stakeholders through the PPP model, that is with Indian Railways, Port Authority and industry need to work in close collaboration to plan development of infrastructural facilities as per requirements. Dedicated private lines, logistics availability and coordination in offtake arrangements for coal through railways needs dedicated private lines to be built in areas where future mining capacity will come up. Okay, so these are some initiatives taken to improve coal logistics, that is freight operations information systems, PM Gati Shakti scheme. Okay, so remember the next section is business and innovation, business policy. What is the context or what is the objectives of business policy? Boost Atmanirbhar Bharat, winning away from crony policy. So remember this term pro crony policy, making the India investment friendly destination and liberalized rules to promote new sectors such as drones, electric vehicles, space integration, the environment, social and government ESG parameters in the business process and climate. What are the policies or initiatives taken by the government? Direct taxation reforms, reduction of corporate tax, minimum alternative tax relief, indirect taxation reforms such as goods and services tax, amendments to the Companies Act 2013 and Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016, PPP model in railways, highways, airports and health infrastructure, investment in India platform, one-stop solution for foreign investment, creation of 400 billion US dollar fund to aid corporate debt markets, creation of Center for Processing Accelerated Corporate Exit, plan to centralize decision making on all regulatory reforms currently being undertaken by Registrar of Companies. Okay, what are the constraints? Multiplicity of legislation and statutory compliance requirements, delays in construction permits, dispute resolution and enforcing contracts, infrastructure deficiencies in the overall business environment, market failures when the macroeconomic climate is poor, excessive intervention in the market dynamics, issues of crony capitalism, bureaucratic hurdles, corruption, fragmented market, supply chain disruptions, digital disparities. So these are the constraints related to business policy. What are the way forward? Can subscribe to the disruptive ideology of creative destruction, creating level playing field for all market participants, optimized allocation of resources via tools like auction, structural changes to enhance ease of doing business, streamlining logistics process, create resilience through profound adoption of environment, social and governance norms, ESG norms. And next is legal reforms and ease of doing business. What is the context? Ministry of Commerce and Industry has introduced the Jan Biswas Amendment of Provisions Bill 2022 in Lok Sabha. Under the news, bill amends 42 acts administered by 19 ministries to reduce the compliance burden on individuals and business and ensure ease of doing business. It will help in settlement of a large number of issues by adjudication and administrative mechanisms without involving courts. Key provisions of the bill. So remember these facts about the bill, specifications and details. Decriminalizing certain offences. Several offences with an imprisonment term in certain acts have been decriminalized by imposing only a monetary penalty. Revisions of fines and penalties. Increases fines and penalties for various offences in specified acts by 10% of minimum amount every 3 years. Appointing adjudicating officers. Central government may appoint one or more adjudicating officers for purpose of determining penalties. Appellate mechanisms. It specifies appellate mechanisms for any person aggrieved by order passed by the adjudicating officer. For instance, in Environment Protection Act 1986, appeals may be filed with National Green Tribunal within 60 days from order. About ease of doing business, so keep this in mind. About the facts, so 63rd rank of India in ease of doing business, published by the World Bank. Legal hurdles in ease of doing business. It is legal variance from state to state, complex legal processes, and import-export hurdles, land acquisition issues, adjudication issues. So this is not much important for upcoming means because World Bank has stopped this ease of doing business index because of China perception. Okay, 10 parameters. Remember these facts. 10 parameters of ease of doing business. Okay, starting a business, dealing with construction permits, getting electricity, getting credit, registry property, protecting minority investors, paying taxes, trading across boards, enforcing contracts, and resolving insolvency. So keep this in mind. Okay. What are the other initiatives taken for improving ease of doing business in India? Labor laws, dedicated commercial codes, insolvency and bankruptcy codes 2016, SPICE program, simplified for former foreign incorporating company electronically, Shram Subhida portals. And what is the way forward? Ease compliance. Under ease compliance, a systematic exercise across center and state should be undertaken to eliminate or reduce compliances having an adverse impact on time and cost of business. Dispute resolution framework, fast track courts and alternate dispute resolution mechanisms. Land acquisition, fast track digitization of land records to ensure clearer land titles. Creating awareness. Awareness needs to be generated regarding Startup India initiative. Tax holidays. Tax holding of 3 consecutive years under Income Tax Act 1969 provided to startups incorporated between 2016 to 22 needs to be extended. What are the significance of ease of doing business? Encourage exports, key to entrepreneurship, innovation and wealth creation, low regulatory burden, boost entrepreneurship through improved market efficiency and reduced regulatory burden, attract foreign investment by changing investor sentiments. Keep this in mind. Okay. Next is corporate social responsibility, that is CSR. What is the context? Corporate CSR requires certain companies to mandatorily spend at least 2% of their average net profit of immediately preceding 3 financial years on CSR activities under Section 135 of Companies Act 2013. A company, both domestic as and foreign, having a net worth of rupees 500 crore or more, a turnover of rupees 1000 crore or more, a net profit of rupees 5 crore or more. So keep this in mind. What are the objectives of the CSR? Enhanced access to capital and market, minimized environmental impacts, bolstered brand image and increased customer loyalty, better income and employment opportunities to the local communities, promotion of indigenous culture and empowerment of vulnerable sections such as minorities, women, differently abled, and enhanced public welfare and trust, free up existing resources and harness new resources through partnerships. So keep this in mind about the CSR. What are the issues associated with CSR? Geographical bias or geographical barriers. 33% of total CSR is spent in 5 developed states such as Maharashtra, Gujarat, Tamil Nadu, etc., Karnataka, etc. Lack of reporting. The exact amount of expenditure spent by firm on CSR activities, spending is skewed towards some sectors. Around 60% of total CSR funds spent during 2014-15 to 2020-21 were in areas of education, healthcare and rural development related activities. Lack of community partners participation in CSR activities, lack of transparency on the part of local implementing agencies, narrow perception possessed by NGOs and government agencies towards CSR initiatives. So these are the some issues. What are the way forward to boost the CSR reforms in India? Companies should embrace a participatory approach with communities and NGOs as partners across program design and implementation. Prioritize marginalized populations within their existing programs by explicitly taking efforts for communities such as SCs, STs, women, or PWDs. Hire professional CSR team that can bridge corporate and social sectors, involving beneficiaries in CSR spending so that awareness is generated among stakeholders. Dedicated department of CSR in at minor ministry level in central and states, using technology driven solutions for redressal of socio-economic issues. Next is the Competition Amendment Act 2023. What is the context? The Center notified several provisions of the Competition Amendment Act 2023, which amended the Competition Act 2002. Under the definitions in the Act. Definition of combination. The Competition Amendment Act expands the definition of combinations, mergers, acquisitions, or amalgamation of enterprises to include transactions with values above rupees 2000 crore. So remember this factual information. Reduction in the time limit for approval of combinations from 2010 days to 150 days. So this is also factual information. You can remember this. Definition of control for classification of combinations. An expansion of scope of cartels to include hub and spoke arrangements. What are the grievance redressal mechanism or penalty provisions? Limitation period for filing information. A complaint against anti-competitive conduct needs to be filed before the Competition Commission of India within 3 years from the date on which the cause of action arose. The CCI is empowered to condone delays. Increased penalty for false statement or omission of material information from 1 crore to 5 crore. Penalty based on global turnover. The penalties for anti-competitive amendments and abuse of dominant position would be imposed based on the global turnover derived from all products and services by such persons or an enterprise. Leniency regime, where a party implicated in a cartel investigation makes a true and vital disclosure of an alleged violation or another undisclosed cartel. Competition Commission of India is empowered to also grant an additional lesser penalty for the cartel already being investigated. Decriminalization of certain offences. The Competition Amendment Act changes the nature of punishment for certain offences from the imposition of the fines to penalties. Other provisions of the Competition Amendment Act, settlement and commitment mechanisms under the Competition Amendment Act. Competition Commission of India may initiate the proceedings against the enterprises on the grounds of entering into anti-competitive agreements. Competition Amendment Act permits CCI to close inquiry proceedings if the enterprise offers settlement may involve payment or commitments, may be structural or behavioral. Appointment of Director General. As per the CA Competition Amendment Act, the Director General shall now be appointed by the CCI with prior approval of the central government, as against the erstwhile power being vested with the central government. What are the concerns regarding the Competition Amendment Act? Ambiguity in interpretation of concepts like material influence, transaction values, etc. Increased burden on parties to undertake a detailed engagement with the Competition Commission of India flood of additional transactions having to be notified to the Competition Commission of India due to low threshold. Considerable time presumed on the parties as well as the Competition Commission of India. So remember these concerns regarding the Competition Amendment Act. Significance of the amendment: speedy approvals. The reduction in the maximum time limit for the approval of combinations would provide more speedy approval, fair competition by requiring Competition Commission of India's approval for transactions that exceed rupees 2000 crore threshold. The Act seeks to ensure that large-scale mergers and acquisition transactions do not result in anti-competitive practices and promote fair competition in the market. Higher penalties. The computation of penalties based on global turnover will result in higher penalties for global multi-product companies, thus increasing deterrence. Next is the increase in jurisdiction. Increase in the number of transactions to be caught under merger control jurisdictions of the Competition Commission of India through the introduction of the deal value threshold and dilution of the threshold for control. Faster resolution. Facilitating faster resolution of enforcement proceedings through settlements and commitments. So you can remember these significance of the amendment. What is the conclusion? To reform in the amendment. The amendments are forward-looking and capable of handling competition law issues of the future. The next phase of reforms aims towards clearing any possible ambiguity and creating processes to ensure easy and effective compliance with the provisions. Next is under the Competition Commission of India, the competition law and big technology companies. What is the context? Recently, the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Finance gave a report titled Anti-Competitive Practices by Big Tech Companies and urged for a Digital Competition Act and Code of Conduct for tech companies like Google and Microsoft and Amazon, etc. Significance of the competition. In an economy, competition is viewed as an important process as it incentivizes companies to innovate and specialize in order to withstand competition, protect consumers' interest by offering greater choices and quality at reduced costs, leads to higher payments and better working conditions from organizations to attract and retain workers. Sign of a healthy and profitable marketplace, attracting others to invest as well. Without competition, dominant firms can use their market power to charge higher prices, lower quality of products, services, and block potential competitors' entry into the market. Committee finding. The underlying economic drivers of digital markets have inevitably led to the rise of relatively few leading players, collectively referred to as big tech companies. Okay, so remember this. What are the anti-competitive practices? Anti-steering provisions. That is, prevent users from moving out of the platform. For example, app stores, platform neutrality or self-preferencing. For example, Google Play on Play Store, adjacency or building and time. For example, that is forcing people to buy related services. Data usage, use of non-public data. For example, use of past purchase data without consent, mergers and acquisitions to discourage competition, and pricing or deep discounting to force smaller players out of the market. Exclusive tips of negatively affected other platforms, search and ranking performance in preferencing, for example, preferential listing of Amazon and Flipkart, restricting third-party applications, self-preferencing in advertisement. So these are the anti-competitive practices. Next is the legislative framework in India. and its issues. To promote and sustain fair competition, that is to prevent practices having adverse effect on competition, the Government of India enacted the Competition Act 2002. Competition Commission of India, established in 2009 for the administration, implementation and enforcement of the Act. National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, constituted under the Companies Act of 2013, is the appellate tribunal to hear and dispose appeals against Competition Commission of India directions, orders or findings, but it is an ex post approach, that is, law designed to penalize anti-competitive behavior only after its occurrence. In comparison, digital markets move at a high pace due to the increasing retention of size economies, making ex post effects to delayed to prevent irreparable harm to affected parties from big techs. Okay, limited fair competition quickly with 1 to 2 winners taking all in comparison to traditional markets which tend to be fair and contestable. Network effect, that is increased utility of platforms with increased users making the larger platforms more efficient. Cornering of valuable market inputs, for example talented workforce, and quick unlocking of increasing return effects of adjacent markets or other harms. What are the negative impact of anti-competitive processes? Harmful price rise, diminished allocating efficiency, productivity slowdown, decreased innovation, and stifling of consumer choices. So remember this remember these negative impact of anti-competitive practices. What are the way forward? The committee recommendations and other measures. Define and identify a small number of systemically important digital intermediaries or digital gatekeepers that can negatively influence competition. Impose ex ante competitive restraint on central banks in India to regulate competition in digital markets. Global harmonization of digital regulations to reduce the regulatory burden for companies and help Indian companies compete globally. Mechanism: harmonize competition law with Consumer Protection Act 2020 and e-commerce rules under it. Mechanism to ensure fair compensation to the consumers, revamping Competition Commission of India and strengthening it to take new responsibilities, for example setting up specialized digital markets within the commission with skilled experts, academics and attorneys. So keep this in mind. Next is prescribe a code of conduct with specific measures for SIDIs to prevent them from abusing their market power to stifle competition. Okay, such as specific measures such as allowing technically and enable third-party software app installation, no conditional access to the platform or preferred status, ensure platform neutrality, don't force business users or end users to subscribe or register, no processing of personal data for advertising, prior information to Competition Commission of India of any intended concentration by M&A, no differentiating in commercial conditions, don't prevent business users from opening same products or service at different prices. So these are the specific measures from about the competition law and big technology companies. Okay, so this means 365 economic development magazine has ended because this is the appendix and you can remember and sliding and these are the previous factual information given here, so you can refer the magazine and go through one or two times. And this is important to you that if you watch the video, then like, comment and share this video and subscribe as well. So today I end this video, and it is completed the mains 365 economic development. Okay, so what you want next mains 365 magazine, you can suggest me in the comment section. Okay, so I will end here. So thank you for watching. Have a good day.